Hello and welcome back to All in Agile. As we approach the end of the year, it's the perfect time to pause, reflect, and ask the big questions. What worked well, what didn't, and where do we want to go from there? In today's episode, we're talking about one of the most important aspects of any Agile working space, and that is retrospectives. We'll dive into what are retrospectives, why are they so useful, and how to avoid falling into the trap of cargo called retros. Those meetings that feel like retros in name, but only miss the real value. Now, I welcome back, as per usual, my co host, David. Nice to see you.
Hi, Bernie. Hi, everybody. Nice to
Hello.
be with you here.
Right. So, David, first question. What are retrospectives and why are they useful?
You see, it's a great topic. Yeah, you've picked or we've picked today. It's the when we now take the podcast, yeah, and we record the
Yeah,
podcast. It's now right before Christmas and before
true.
the end of the year, and it's the perfect time to reflect on the last year and also project on the next year. And what is a retro? A retro is exactly that, a reflection on the last sprint or the last past days and weeks. We work in iterations in the Agile world, and reflection on the last iteration on the one hand, on a reflection on us as a team and on us as a Scrum team, for example, and on our work and on our behavior, of course. That's the one thing, but the other thing is also a possibility to inspect and adapt. Yeah, so to inspect our behavior, our system, our processes, how we do things, and how to improve that. And that's the most important part. So I like to do it my private life as well, that I use the time when everybody gets cozy at home. Outside it's cold, and you reflect on the last year and also reflect on what you want to do the next year. What are your dreams? What do you want to improve in your life? And I think that's a great metaphor as well, to use this thing, the Christmas time at the end of the year and the next year, so the New Year's Eve, to also understand what the retrospective in Scrum and in Agile methodologies are.
Mm.
What about you, Bernie? Would you define?
Yeah. Now, I love retrospectives just from the get go. To make that clear, let's look at the word. You already mentioned a couple of things, right? Retro, looking back, spective, looking. So, introspection in the past. What did we do, especially in team settings? Very, very useful to ask that question. You know, how, where did we go right? Where did we go wrong? What can we improve for the future? A question that is dearly missed in most work environments, whether they are agile or not. It doesn't matter. You can definitely work with retrospectives also in a non-agile framework, or if you don't follow an agile framework, if you will. And as you mentioned, retrospectives can be useful also internally, right? Just for you as a person, can be also scaled up to the whole organization. So retrospectives are useful in any case, but because they are so socially focused also, because they don't only look at processes, but also social processes, they are sometimes seen as this cozy, way of just not being productively working on things, but rather have an emotional outlet, which can have a positive impact as well. But I think we will get into a bit of the pitfalls of retrospectives, and I think that's the beauty actually of retrospectives, that they can be quite transformative for a team. However, we need to take care of not going into the wrong direction, because there's some traps along the way. Now, David, as we're already talking about traps, do you want to start us off with one
Yeah,
usual trap that people fall into or teams fall into?
yeah. So I think we can do couple of episodes on that topic
Yeah.
alone. It's such a good topic, and often also very polarizing. Yeah? So, for example, often managers or even software engineers or teammates don't see the need for a retrospective, and then that's often because it's not done right, it's not done properly. So if you do cargo cult Scrum, for example, you just do it to do it. You don't get any value out of it. And the most important thing is that there is some value out of the retrospective. And as a rule of thumb, an anti-pattern would be if you don't have any improvement after the retro. You just did your discussion about all the bad things, which happened to you, and you are the victim of all the things, and you don't do any improvements or identify any impediments and how to improve them, and that would be a major anti-pattern. And to improve that, I always like to go into the retro and first do a short reminder. We are here to identify improvements, and in the best case, we can end up with 2 or 3 topics. We either have already an idea how to improve it, or at least we know it's a problem and we commit to work on that problem, on that impediment. And that would be a good pattern I often use.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you have some tips for us how to make it better, or maybe also some symptoms why retros often don't work out very good?
Yeah, let's start with that. I think that's really interesting, especially for agile coaches out there, scrum masters that are listening in. If a retro feels bad, that doesn't mean it's bad. If a retro is really intense, it may be an inflection point for the team. It may be something that really drives the team forward and gets to that bottom of the problem, to really the core of the problem that you want to solve. So don't feel that your drainage, right? If you're drained in the end as a facilitator, that doesn't mean that the retro went badly. Just ask your team a couple of days later how they felt it went, and also look at the results. Second point, you also mentioned results-driven retrospectives. Yeah, try to make it actionable if you can. If it's social processes, you may not want to write down action items, but still try to make it felt, the impact of what you're doing. Thirdly, if you go out of the retrospective and the other way around, you feel great. Yeah, everybody's happy and cheerful. Might be a good thing, can be a terrible thing, because sometimes retrospectives become right this feel good place where moaning is allowed, and the social cuddly sphere is created, and it's a slippery slope, because on the one hand you want the team to feel socially integrated, and it can be a driver, but it can also be something that really shows the inefficiency and ineffectiveness of a retro format. So all to put it in short, just don't download some pre-template, right? Don't take the team's social dynamics into consideration and just go through it and through the waves. That usually just scrapes the surface. Now, David, I would be interested in what was a memorable retrospective to you. Does one stand out?
Definitely. So there are a couple of different retros we had. But before I answer that, I would like to add on the things what you just said. Is it a bad retro when you don't get any action item out of it? I would say no, it's not. It's a very powerful thing we do as Scrum Masters or as Agile coaches when we do retrospectives. And you can really manage and steer and also control what is happening in the retro, because it's often also a good thing. You can target a retro where you want everybody to come out with a positive mood.
Yeah.
That could be very, very helpful. It could be very helpful when it's a really tough time for your team right now, and there are, I don't know, deadlines or stress with customers or something like that. Um, and it's not a fun place to be right now, but you can make the retro and make it a really fun way, and everybody comes out with positive energy. That could be one target. It doesn't have to be a concrete improvement. I like to do that. That's what I said before, but it must not be the only one goal. On the other hand, the thing you just mentioned, when a team is really has a lot of conflicts, but they are not hot conflicts, but they are cold conflicts. They are existent. Everybody know it's in the room, but it's not discussed right now. So hidden conflicts. It might be a good retro when you manage to get these emotions out of your colleagues, and you really use the retro to open up these conflicts, but also solve it. So be careful, of course. Don't open a conflict and then you run out of time and okay, now we have to stop the retro. That would be bad. But this could be also a very good thing. So what type of retros do I like? Of course, all the retros where I really feel okay, it was very purposeful. And one pattern I also often use is that I ask the people the last 5 minutes, are you satisfied with the retro? Did it brought value to you? That's really, really important. And so that's the one thing. And another thing is when we use retros just to have a little bit of fun and loosen up this day in and day out work, daily life. For example, we bought some how is it called, Kinder Easter eggs,
Yeah,
something
Kinder
like
eggs.
that.
Yeah.
Kinder eggs, yeah. And there's a little toy in it, and everybody got one, and we built it, and then used that as an impulse to reflect on the last sprint. And so also some small games or warm-up questions or questions. I often use icebreaker at the beginning to just loosen up the mood a little bit. And these are the times when you really can learn something about your team and your colleagues, and that's something I really like about retros.
Same.
What comes to your mind, Bernie?
Yeah.
What was your best retro, or a really fun
Well,
retro you
yeah.
can
What
think of?
what I always enjoy retros where people speak openly and honestly and earnestly, right? I mean, in the end, a retrospective is a really good indicator of psychological safety within a team. Are you open enough to tell your colleagues what you don't like, what you didn't like, what really, yeah, also bugged you in the last couple of weeks with them, working with them? So I enjoy the chaotic ones. I enjoy the messy ones, the fuzzy ones. I don't enjoy the formulaic ones, right? Where everybody just gets in, sits down, knows A, B, C, D, A, E, and then we're done and we go back and it has basically no value. So that's I think a really, you already mentioned it as an anti-pattern, but it's also, I think, as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach, it's draining. It's really not fun. And a lot of Agile coaches start off because they have a nick for retrospectives. Because I don't think you necessarily need an Agile coach to facilitate a retrospective. However, it's really helpful because they're usually in a more neutral position and they're also in their skill set really prone to do that. But you can do this also without a Scrum Master in a team. You can facilitate a retrospective if you have the nick for it. And sometimes people really develop themselves into Scrum Masters due to their talents when it comes to retrospectives, because you can be creative, right? You can try things out. There's a real facilitation element to retrospectives. So that's the one thing. And on the other thing, I think we have to get rid of a common misconception when it comes to retrospectives, as you already alluded to. You don't have to have an outcome a retrospective is for you, and definitely for you. As I already mentioned, psychological safety. Please don't invite any other stakeholders to the retro. Keep that for the review. Don't invite any management, any stakeholders from other teams, because then it starts becoming, in the worst case, a blame game, or very silent. So all in all, I think I enjoyed, to your question, I enjoy the messy ones, because you can really work through a lot of things, and it's never easy, and that's good. So, David, my question to you would be, what do you how can we help Scrum Masters, Agile coaches that have really worked their butts off to have this plan for a retrospective, and then it goes off rails in like 5 minutes within the retrospective? What can we help them with? How can we give them some insight?
So yeah, when a retrospective doesn't work your way, and you've prepared, I don't know,
Yeah.
a structure, something like that, always ask yourself, is it worth the discussion? Is it worth it or not? And the thing you said before, facilitating the meeting, that's very important. And it goes hand in hand with the thing I said in the beginning. So if there is a conflict, for example, of course, you need to take a neutral position and facilitate it and moderate it, and try to get an understanding, for each other. And also you can jump in and translate, because often conflicts are a misunderstanding.
Mm.
We hear each other, but we don't listen.
Yeah.
And active listening and repeating things and making clear that the message arrives at the other person, that's really important, for example. And so if this happens, and I had a plan to do the retro, but there
Yeah.
is a thing which is very important for the team to discuss, please do so. Think about if it is helping or not. Um, Maybe you find out that it's helping and it's helping the bigger group, then it's fine. But maybe it's really a personal conflict for maybe two colleagues of you. Then it's better to facilitate and say, hey, we're here for the bigger retro, not only for your conflict, and we need to discuss this later, and I will manage that. I will send out the meeting,
Mm.
and I will be the mentor, or maybe we need to find another mentor. Maybe it's also a conflict between you and your colleagues. Then it's often good also to add some outsider, a neutral person,
Yeah.
to facilitate and to maybe a mediator,
Yeah.
to mediate the thing.
Mm. Now I want to pick you up on that, because I do think that it's a pickle, right? Because as a Scrum Master, especially, you are part of the team, even though you are not, in a way, right? And there's two schools of thought. The ones you already mentioned it, I mentioned it, facilitate the retro, but be neutral. And the other way of looking at things is be a participant, facilitate, but have a position. Because if you do have a conflict, let's say, or at least some stake in the game, to a topic, you are, of course, not neutral in any sort of way,
Yeah,
anyhow. And so, in the transparency's sake, be a participant. Now, again, it's a matter of the team. It's a matter of style with the Scrum Master or the Agile coach. Now, David, what would you say? What would you
yeah,
recommend?
yeah. It's also, I think it's also a feeling. Yeah, if you are empathic enough and feel the room.
Yeah.
And I switch. To be honest, I switch
Yeah.
in between these positions. Sometimes I have my own opinion and I fight for my own opinion, and sometimes I am the neutral person.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand and learn when you should take which role,
Yeah.
because um, you are a leader as well, and neutrality and the, the coaching position is a lie, to be honest, because every person has to some extent an action or
Bias.
a bias on the topic. And of course, I want to reach my goals as well. My goals as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach. And that's why I do something with the team, and the team does something with me. And just saying that I'm a coach and I'm not responsible for things, you do the things, and I'm just facilitating. I don't think that's working.
Well, I think we already have opened the door quite a bit now to the topic of coaching, which we will cover in one of the next episodes for sure. But I do agree. Yeah, it's rarely in life it's black and white or white, right? It's always a matter of degree, and I would also agree with that. As Scrum Masters, as Agile coaches, we are used to having different hats on, right? Different stances. So I also do it like that. Yeah, I would say 70% of the time I'm neutral, or 75 probably. And sometimes you have to step in because sometimes people are wrong in their assumptions. Sometimes the team is going in a direction and facilitating themselves in a direction in which they shouldn't go into, right? They have their pitfalls as well. The team is a social construct and a system that's really, really robust. And sometimes you work very hard for a couple of months to get the team to another level, and then the social dynamic in the retro is extremely potent to drive them into the wrong direction, to be frank. And I think there is a wrong direction in some ways. For example, wrong approaches to testing mindset, for instance, right?
Exactly.
That can happen like that. And so it is then, I think, also your imperative to step in and give another caveat and facilitate the conversation in another direction without alienating or losing anybody. And that's why it's a bit of a slippery slope, and honestly, a really difficult, difficult, meeting to facilitate. There are easier ones, that's for sure.
It's a necessity that the team also needs leadership. So self organization needs leadership as well. And a Scrum Master or a Agile coach should be a leader as well. So if the team testing example was great, I did that with my team. So I have evidence that test-driven development and writing automated tests helps a team. It's out there in different books, and really scientific research has been done. And the team also needs sometimes a little bit a kick in the right direction, and then they can do the self-management again, self-organization again. You mentioned reviews and the comparison between reviews and retros, and maybe that's a good topic for next time. What's the difference? What's the difference between a review and a retro? They do both the same, right? They do look back on something. So maybe that's a good topic for next time.
Yeah, and I want to pick you up on that because you said, what's the difference? I know another difference, which is that there are teams that absolutely love retros and hate retros, but I still have to meet a team that loves reviews. Just kidding. Now, I'm very much looking forward to that, but I think we'll wrap it up now. That's it for today's episode of All in Agile, the retrospective of the end of the year. As the year winds down, takes time to reflect, as we already talked about, but I think this conversation gave us something to think about. Definitely, maybe it also gave you something to think about. Why not bring it to your next retro? Even make it a topic in the retro itself. You can also share, of course, our podcast. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review, write in the comments, share it with your colleagues, who might maybe need a little retrospective inspiration for themselves. Thanks for joining us, and here's to 2025, a year of growth, learning, and fewer cargo cult practices. Stay agile. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.